it's Heather Boyd from Nurture Squared with another interview or mini workshop, I guess. Today we are learning about WordPress as a format for building websites. And we're here with Brad Beaulieu, who has lots of experience in website development, who's going to walk us through some of the basics of using WordPress and of building a website. And so, Brad, thanks for being with us here for the next 30 minutes.
Of course, Heather. It's great to talk with you.
Super. So I'm going to start just describing a little bit about your background so people know where you're coming from. And when I say background, I have to mention again that the backdrop behind you, your literal background, a bunch of awesome Star Wars paraphernalia. So I just think that's terrific.
Yeah, I'm a big Star Wars fan.
Terrific. We are here in this house too. But your other background, your professional background, you have 3-year computer programmer analyst program from George Brown, and you have a postgrad webmaster course through Seneca.
Yeah.
And you've also worked back-end developer for a Burlington company, and then you've had some clients like Tim Hortons and the Rocca Sisters in real estate and Meridian Banking. So you have quite a broad background in website development.
I definitely do. Yeah, I've worked for the past 5 or 6 years doing web development for a bunch of different clients, ranging from smaller kind of like mom and pop shops to larger international companies. So I've got a wide range of clients that I've dealt with in terms of their needs and kind of like the brand reach that they have.
Terrific. Well, and I should also mention that your connection with Nurture Squared is through your spouse, who's a member of Nurture Squared. So that's how you and I ended up connecting today. So I'm grateful for that. What I'd like to know, and I know most of a lot of members already have websites up and running. Some are just getting started with websites and not sure where to start. So obviously in this day and age, having a website presence is really key for having a place where people can find us. I wonder if you could start by describing what you feel are the primary considerations when we're developing a website that we want to use to attract clients.
Well, I feel that a website is a great way to show what your business can be besides a pamphlet or a physical location. It's kind of like a physical location that's digital. It's a digital location. So putting the time and effort into creating a website that is user-friendly for the client is first and foremost what I try to do. Secondly would be to make a website that is user-friendly for the actual business owner. Some people who have websites are not technically minded, and so having to work with a website that is frustrating or difficult can really sour them on the whole procedure, and then they can let that drop by the wayside because it's not intuitive, it's not second nature for them. So I really try to help clients create a site, a presence that is it's both easy for them to use and easy for their clients to use.
I hadn't really thought of that before, that two-pronged. Like, obviously you want something that's easy to read and easy to access, but most of us here at Nurture Squared are in the helping profession. We're not in the business field. We're not in web design. And so anything that we're adding on to our learning in terms of web design is adding to a whole other area or a whole other niche that we're not really, for me, I wasn't really thinking about that when I got into occupational therapy, was needing to know some basics of that. So that's a really good point. I wonder too, nurturesquared.com uses WordPress as a basis. That was what I was familiar with at the time, and I had a basic understanding of it. But there are lots of other options out there, and I know that WordPress is still #1, or at least like really high up there. Can you talk a little bit about, especially for those who are still trying to design their website or decide where to start their website, what would some of the pros and cons of WordPress be, or some of the considerations that they should make when deciding where they should start?
Well, for the different content management systems that are available, they can range from free, such as things like WordPress, to thousands of dollars on a monthly basis. So that's obviously for a more enterprise level business. I enjoy working with WordPress, and I highly recommend WordPress for people because it's free, so cost effective. If someone is just trying to get a website kind of up and running, they don't have to worry about any sort of licensing fees or anything like that, which can really add up, especially if you're paying monthly for to have a software that for starting business you may not even be turning a profit. So that's like it's an additional cost that you can really do without. So the fee is one thing. It's also very user friendly. I know many people who have no background who have gone on to create sites are basic in look and feel, but they're what they need. There are so many plugins for WordPress that, again, most of them are free. Some of them have a small one-time fee. So again, you're not paying that another monthly bill that you got to pay. And with all the plugins, you can really do almost anything with WordPress. It's so robust. It also has I believe 30% market share. So like you said, it is number one. And 30% may seem small, but when you think of there's hundreds of other options out there, 30% is actually huge. So because it's so big, there's so many people who know it, developers who can kind of work with it. So even if people don't come to me, it's like there's so many people out there that can work with it. It's relatively easy to learn, and it can get difficult to master. But for people just starting out with a website, you can definitely pick it up and kind of go with it. Some of the other options out there are similar. There's Drupal, which is a very similar one. And then there's the website builder software like Wix. These are other options people can go with that, again, they're something like Wix is you're paying for that service on a monthly basis. So there's that. It's less customizable, less user friendly. You're really kind of stuck within their predefined little box of what a website can do. Whereas with WordPress, you can really you can go above and beyond what WordPress actually does. You can kind of customize everything. So that's why I strongly recommend WordPress for most sites, from small sites even to large. We've done large sites that are all done through WordPress that are, several thousand pages for an international business. Right. And they had products and they had multi-language, and so it was a huge site, and it was all done through WordPress, and the client loved it. They thought it was the easiest thing to work with because of the way we had built it.
Right. And I remember when we talked before the interview, Squarespace was another one that you brought up, and you had said, a lot of the ones that are out there now are easy to pop in and get started, but you hit a ceiling really fast in terms of that customizability.
Yeah. I've dealt a little bit with Wix, and I've looked into the Squarespace, and they're good for if you want kind of like a 1 or 2 page site up, just kind of like an information page and maybe a contact form. They're perfect for that. But the minute you kind of want to go above and beyond with a robust kind of product inventory system, if you want to do any sort of e-commerce, I would not recommend them for that, just because they get very limited really fast.
Okay. Now, you were talking about plugins, and I have a question about plugins, because I have a website on Squarespace, but I also have one on WordPress. And when you look on plugins in WordPress, I mean, there are, like, say you wanted to add a calendar, there are lots of options, and these are open source in a way, or different companies have developed these plugins, right? For, let's say, again, with the example of the calendar, how do you choose one that's going to work well, or that's developed by someone who's good at developing them?
Yeah, it can be a struggle when you type in something like like you said, a calendar, or or like an email. If you want to send out emails to your customers or something, you type in that, and there's hundreds of different options. Some of the things I look for is how old the plugin is. If it's been around for a long time and it's with plugins, it tells you when it was last updated. So if it was last updated within the past couple months, that usually means it's an active plugin that they're working on. How many users it has. It will tell you how many active people are currently using it. So again, if it's in the millions, that's a good sign that it's what you're after. If you find a plugin that has a couple hundred users and it hasn't been updated in a year and a half, that's probably not a good starting point, because even if it works now, as WordPress grows, they may slowly kind of like not work together, which we've seen. We found a plugin that the description was perfect and we downloaded it, worked fine. But a year and a half later, it was pretty much abandoned. WordPress updated and the plugin just broke. So it is a risk you take, but by finding plugins that, like I said, are being updated regularly and have a huge user base, those are the plugins that are going to be maintained and be around.
Terrific. And I suppose, I mean, if there's a plugin that is a modest fee, does that say anything about the quality, or does that just say more about the person who developed it?
No. There are obviously paid plugins, and I have used them in the past. They are really good. The paid plugins, again, you're paying for a service. The people who create it usually, that's their main revenue source. There's companies around that all they do is they create plugins that people can purchase, and so those plugins usually they're a safe bet. I've gone with a couple that I regularly use. Some of them are lifetime fees. It's a one-time lifetime fee. Some of them are monthly fees, but they're ridiculously small, and you pay kind of an annual fee. So it's not too bad, and those plugins that have an annual fee are usually larger kind of plugins that the site is built around. We had a website that was doing interesting take on internet commerce, and so we found a specific plugin that was a paid plugin that did a lot more than the free one, and it was a monthly subscription, but the client was happy to pay it because it did everything with greater ease than the kind of free alternatives.
Well, and I guess you're balancing it out with the fact that you're starting with a free website to begin with, right?
Yeah, and a lot of plugins a lot of paid plugins have a free version where it gives you like 60% of the features. And once you start using it, you see, oh, can it do this? Yes, it can, but that's the paid version. So you can see that the paid version is worth it at that point.
Right.
So a lot of them have the free option just to kind of get you in the door and see what it's like. And again, if it's not what you want, you didn't pay any money for it.
Right. Yeah. Well, that sounds good. I haven't played around with plugins. I think I've been afraid to plug them in. It shuts down the whole site, but maybe I just need a little bit of courage. There is a concept that comes up a lot in web design and optimizing website presence on the internet, because of course, if people can't find us, they can't call us. And if they can't call us, then they're not hiring us. And that is the idea of SEO.
SEO, yeah.
I wonder if you can talk a little bit about what it is, and then how WordPress manages, or in what ways WordPress would, or how we'd increase SEO if we're using WordPress as our website base.
Mm-hmm. There is, again, a WordPress plugin for SEO, search engine optimization, which is pretty much kind of industry standard. It's, again, has a free version that I highly recommend to everybody. And then there's a paid version that does a little bit more kind of on the analytics side. But as far as I know, the actual SEO features are the same. It's just if you kind of want more information on how you're kind of ranking and stuff, a little more of the background information that isn't going to affect your ranking. It's just helps you better understand where you're placing. So there is a plugin that I always recommend for the actual search engine optimization. Search engines don't disclose how they rank sites. That's not public knowledge. Anyone who says that they've mastered or cracked the code of how search engines work, that's baloney. They don't want that to be public knowledge, because then people can game the system. They can just kind of like put whatever information they want to show up at the top of every result. So, for example, if you have a cookie site, you could put a bunch of like political stuff so that during the political, election, you'd always rank at the top, even though you're a cookie site. So search engines never disclose how they rank things. So a lot of these companies that create the plugins, they're doing their due diligence, their research on the best ways. So these plugins get updated every couple of weeks, maybe a few months, just as they kind of say, oh, we see that if we adjust something in the plugin, we rank a little bit higher. So the plugin does work well.
So the plugin itself is changing something with your website, even if your content isn't changing.
Yeah, well, the plugin, you don't have to do anything with the plugin. When it updates, the way it displays information on the page just changes. So it's all automatic. The only thing that can be a little bit tricky with these SEO plugins is that the user, the person managing the site, they have to actually put in the content, and that can be a little bit time consuming. If you only have 10 pages, it's not bad. But if you have a continuous list of products being added nonstop, you've got to put in a description for them, a bunch of like kind of keywords, a bunch like a lot of information per product. So it can be a little bit draining to, especially if you're just kind of like launching a site all at once and you're putting in all the content. You've got to think about this extra aspect of content, which can be quite a bit. So.
Right. And do those, like the words that we use on our website, does that ends up being part of what optimizes our appearance on a search engine, right? Like if it's a cookie baking site, then somehow the engine would work if someone's searching for cookies, hopefully, cookies in Hamilton, hopefully that company would come up fairly close to the top of the list for someone searching for cookies in Hamilton.
Yeah, but again, when search engines search a site, the content on a site ranks lower than, say, keywords. So if even though the actual page may not say the words cookie or Hamilton, if you have that in the keywords, then it will show up if that's what someone is searching. So again, they've kind of like done their best guess as to how the search engines are pulling information, and the content on a site is ranked lower than other factors like the keywords.
Okay, so if people have just focused on content and not on keywords, then keywords would be the next step for getting a bit more visible. Yeah. Aha, okay. Exactly. That is helpful information. I know that was a big elephant for me, this whole SEO thing. So that's really great. One of the other questions that we had talked about too in developing a website, because for most of us, we run very small, often sole proprietor websites. We don't even have products. We're selling our services. We're selling consults with us, or limited products that are handmade or sewn. And so, we're kind of the chief cook and bottle washer all wrapped in one. When is it, and I say this because, or I'm asking this, reminding myself of Dawn Mucci's interview, the first interview we did with Nurture Squared, and she said the prime advice she could give to anybody starting a business is don't do it alone. Get help. Outsource.
Yeah.
So my question would be, when would it be, especially when we tend to try to do literally everything, including getting the kids to bed and bathing and housekeeping and meal making and running a business. despite whatever progress that we've made in trying to balance out responsibilities, when might be a good flag or a good transition or a good opportunity to realize that maybe we should pull in some extra help to support either the website development or the maintenance of the website?
Well, first off, even if you want to do everything kind of yourself, I would, at the bare minimum, contact some sort of a designer and have them help you design a look and a layout for the page, because not everyone is good at everything. So contacting someone who can help you get the look of your site, even if you go with a website builder like Wix or Squarespace, at least you have that outline of what a decent website should look like, or how they would help you lay out the look of the page. So at the bare minimum, I would say that if you do go kind of like the WordPress side of things and want to do it yourself, I would reach out the minute it becomes more work than you're willing to put into it. If you're finding that editing pages and trying to build a page and put content in is too much, then you're wasting your time on something that is not bringing in money for you. So reaching out and having someone who can do it. There are content entry people who can do content entry relatively cheap, and that saves your time for something more important like growing your business. And then once the site is kind of up and running, those services can be scaled back to a manageable point for you. But I mean, when you find yourself not wasting your time on the site, but spending more time than you're getting out of it, that's when I would reach out and find someone who can kind of help you with the area that you're kind of spinning your wheels. Right. If it's content, if it's the development or design, you can find local people who are willing to help you at pretty reasonable prices, right, even if it's just temporary.
Right. Well, and that's a really helpful point, especially when I think in general, we are not in the business of website development. We just know we have to have a website to develop our business. And at some point, that tipping point comes where we're spending more time in our business and not working on our business, as Lucy Colangelo would have said. Just in terms of, where do we want our time and energy going, and where can we pull in some support? Which brings us to our last question, which is, I know that you've started, you've opened yourself up as someone who supports website development and supports businesses in developing their websites. So a small business of your own in terms of website development. I wonder if you can let people know how to reach you. Maybe we didn't even talk about whether you wanted to talk about prices or whether people should just contact you. But what services do you offer, and how can people get in touch with you?
Well, I like you said, I did start a kind of like a local freelance business. I'm trying to help people, businesses with smaller sites, get kind of started, get them all set up through a lot of the beginning steps they may not be aware of, or it may take more time researching them than they either have, or they're going to spend all this time researching something for a one-time set up. So I am trying to help people with that information. So I have started a small business of helping people set up some sites. I'm currently in the process of getting my own site up and running, so I can't direct anyone to it yet. Trying to create a part-time business on the side with family and everything. It
believe me, Brad, I know.
Yeah.
I know that struggle, and we did jump in when I found out that you were willing to talk to me. I knew it was such a important topic for us that I didn't want to wait very long. So we're jumping in really at the ground floor on this one with you. Yeah,
and of course, you have my contact information. I'm more than happy to give that out, and I hope in the next couple of days, maybe a week or so, to have actually a my website up and running, a URL I can direct people to. So I can pass it along to you when it is running, and that will have an email address that people can reach me at.
Terrific. Yeah, when I share this video, I'll be sure to add the link to the bottom so that people have a way to get in touch with you. And I know that you had said that starting out you were offering a pretty good deal, and I know certainly when you and I were talking, it was something that would make it very easy for me to say, yes, give me a little bit of help. So
yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to add that I didn't ask you about, Brad?
No, I think we covered quite a bit right now. Creating a website can be a very daunting task, especially for people who are not technically minded. And having someone you can reach out to just answer questions or point you in the right direction, that can be very helpful. So even if it's not me, if you have someone who is technically minded that you can reach out to, definitely get that going, before you start wasting a lot of your time looking into things that, when it comes to something like web hosting, there's a million different web hosting companies. Some of them are great, some of them are okay, some of them are terrible. So having someone who can, recommend something to you is beneficial. Or if you don't want to deal with hosting, having someone who can, take that on for you. Like people are out there who are very knowledgeable about these things and are very willing to help. So again, even if it's not me, find someone local, find who you can work with, who you can speak with about the site. When I talk to people, I like to kind of help them find out what direction they want to go. I really want to work with people who I can help build the brand. That's one of the things I like to do at my previous job, was talk with clients, talk with what they're after, what their customers are after, and kind of go from there. But even if you find someone who can just answer questions, that's a huge recommendation I would make.
Right. Well, and branding is such a hot topic these days. And again, it's not something I ever thought I'd be spending much time thinking about, but it sure seems to be an important piece of making sure that people see us and know exactly what it is that we're doing so they can make wise choices about whether we're the right match for them. So I want to thank you, Brad, for your time. I know, being a parent and it's the weekend, reaching out 30 minutes to chat with me about websites is not always easy. So I want to say thank you. Thank you for your time today.
Of course. It's great to finally to be able to talk with you. We've been emailing back and forth quite a bit, so
it's nice to actually connect. So that was terrific today. And I'll be sure to get the contact information from you, and then when your website's up and running, we'll add that too. And I feel a little bit more knowledgeable about WordPress. And I meant to ask, but we'll save it for another time. I was going to ask you about the challenges of transferring websites over to WordPress, but I think that would be a whole other conversation.
Yes, that's more than a 2-minute answer.
So we'll talk about that some other time.
Of course, I'd love to.
Well, thank you, Brad, and have a great rest of your day.
Oh, thank you. Same to you.
Okay,
bye.
Bye.